Catholic Views. In the studio with me today, I have currently Deacon Zach Schaefbauer. Welcome, Deacon Schaefbauer.
Thank you, Renee. Good to see you here.
Yep. We are just a couple days. We are recording this on Wednesday, the 25th of May. Deacon Schaefbauer will be ordained in 2 days, Friday, May 27th. So this becomes a little bit weird because we're not really sure if we should call him Father or Deacon yet because this airs on Sunday. So if you're hearing this on Sunday, he's Father Schaefbauer now. So it gets a little weird, but we're going to call him Deacon Schaefbauer for now because that is what he is sitting in front of me right now. So glad you could come in today. So we're going to find out how you got your call of the priesthood, find out a little bit about you, and some things like what you might be looking forward to as a priest. So I'm excited because these episodes, people love these episodes. So be ready that you'll get a lot of attention here.
Oh, boy.
I didn't tell you that before, did
No,
I?
you didn't.
Okay, so will you tell us a little bit about yourself first? Where you grew up, your family, things like that.
Yeah. So I was born in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and then my family moved to Mobridge, South Dakota.
Okay.
I was about a year old. So I lived in Mobridge till my freshman year of high school, so about 14 years.
Okay.
And then we moved back to Aberdeen. So I attended Ron Colley Catholic High School, graduated in 2014, and entered college seminary, St. John Vianney College Seminary at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. And did my undergraduate in philosophy there, and then was asked to study theology in Rome
Nice.
by Bishop Swain. So I did theological studies in Rome for 3 years, and then was back here at St. Paul Seminary for this past year, finishing up formation.
Okay.
So,
brothers and sisters?
yeah, so I'm the oldest of 4 boys.
Okay.
Got 3 younger brothers.
Goodness. It's been wild at your house growing up, I bet, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, my poor mom.
I don't know. Okay, so your mom was on actually with us. Was that last week? It was last week. Your mom and dad were on the show with us to talk about the fishing, the Bishop's Charity Fishing Tournament.
Oh, yeah.
And she seems like someone who can hold her own, even with 4 boys in the house.
At least she learned to.
Yeah, I bet it was a little crazy there.
Growing up with 5 men in the house teaches you things.
Yeah. And Mobridge is not a real big town.
No,
right?
about 3,000.
Okay, it's bigger
people.
than I thought.
Yeah.
So you didn't go to Catholic school your entire life, just high school.
Yep. So it's public school up until even the first couple months into freshman year before we moved.
Yeah.
Yep.
So even public school can turn out a priest, right?
Wow. Yeah. Right?
It wasn't public school that did it. Do not misunderstand me. It was surely the 4 years of high school at Ron Colley. Because Ron Colley is really, I've heard so many good things about it. I haven't been up to Aberdeen in many years since I was in high school, but I've heard such good things about Ron Colley.
Yeah, the community life, I think, is what's phenomenal about it as a high school, as even just the school system at large. And that was one thing when we moved. I was still kind of, as the new kid, you're kind of the outcast to some degree because no one knows you.
Right.
They've all been going to school with each other for forever.
Yes.
But it only took about a year.
Oh,
and, good. Especially my class was very much like a family, and even the parents were very involved in our lives. And so, yeah, the community aspect of that really helped nourish and foster good friendships, and it made high school enjoyable, at least.
Yeah. That's an accomplishment right there.
Right.
Okay, so did you have a plan for your life before you went to seminary? Like, did you think a lot of people would be like, I was going to be a fireman or whatever it was. Did you have a plan? He's laughing like this is going to be a good story. I feel like, I don't know.
I had one plan. I wanted to play college basketball.
Okay. No boys ever say that, or football.
Right.
Were you really good at basketball?
I'll let people tell you. People can speak to their own there.
Okay.
I worked at it pretty hard until about sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
Because it was sophomore year when I started asking more of the vocational questions and such. But still love it to this day. I love basketball. I had an interest in teaching, so particularly literature, lit studies, English studies.
Okay.
But I also landscape architecture too. I was like doing yard work.
Those are very different things.
I know, very different.
But that's really good. So, so are you a writer, or are you just love to read and love literature?
I I'd say both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep that in mind.
Okay.
He's terrified right now. We always need writers. You never know when that might pop up. Well, good. So after talking with your parents about the fishing tournament, I know that you were very involved in going to the fishing tournaments every year, you and your brothers. But I want to know how you got your call to the priesthood. And did that fishing tournament have any impact on that too, in that story?
Sure. Well, the one thing I always remembered about the fishing tournaments as a kid is that the priests were normal.
Right.
Priests and seminarians were so I've told this story a number of times, but with so Father Sean Haggerty, pastor at St. Lambert's right now, I still remembered when I was about 9 or 10 years old playing basketball with him as a seminarian, at the fishing tournament.
Sure.
So just the interaction with them really brought their humanity alive in my eyes. And my parents were also very good about just having our parish priest over for dinners throughout our lives. So the priesthood was not seen as anything. It was extraordinary because it was only someone you saw once or twice a week.
Right.
But it wasn't so extraordinary that it wasn't out of the question of,
Sure,
I could do this. I could see myself doing this.
Sure.
But my vocation, I think, particularly started when I was in 4th grade. Father John Short, who I believe is now in Redfield.
Yeah, I think so.
He asked if I wanted altar serve, and I had been asking him for about a year, and I loved altar serving.
Okay.
So much so, and apparently I was decent at it.
What did you love about it?
I still, even to this day, I don't know how to put words to it.
Okay. Okay. Just being up there and being part of it, I imagine. And
yeah, there's something about with boys, with men, is we like rank and file. Like we all like the military, and there's something orderly, an ordered work, an ordered prayer, you could say, when you altar serve. So I wasn't thinking that as a 10-year-old, obviously, but
right.
But looking back on it, that's one of the things I think I enjoyed was this is the way I pray. This is the way I get involved with the church's life. But I think it kind of started there. I served up through 8th grade, then we moved to Aberdeen, and since I was still kind of new, and at that point, really just not really into the faith.
What? There was a time when you weren't as into the faith?
I was more so than most people.
Oh.
But in my mind, wasn't top priority.
Sure,
basketball still was number one.
Yep.
But it was Father Haggerty, beginning my sophomore year of high school, when he was the associate at Sacred Heart. He got me back into altar serving, and I think that's where, with him and Father Shane Stevens, the pastor, the vocation really flourished because of the knowledge, the depth of liturgy that I learned from those two, and how the priesthood's involved with that. I almost saw the priesthood as like the fulfillment of the altar serving life.
Oh,
so
that's so important to hear because a lot of times parents maybe aren't really keen on having their boys be altar servers for one reason or another, or boys aren't very excited about it. Maybe they won't want to hear that. That's
sure, yeah.
But honestly, that is where they can learn and see that priests are normal.
Yeah,
they're normal people. So it's good to hear you say that.
Yeah, and not to cause any tension here, but
No,
there's we forget about the psychological connections that kids make, without thinking about it. So when a boy is serving and he's wearing his cassock and surplice, for example, and he sees the priest come in to the sacristy in his cassock and he starts vesting in the same type of material, he starts making those connections to say, well, this is him doing the same thing that I'm doing, but greater and larger. And so the boy actually realizes that by altar serving, I'm doing something that the priest himself is doing. So I think I was making those connections along the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when did you decide to go to seminary? And how did that happen?
Yeah.
See if he remembers. It hasn't been that long ago.
No, it's just, you sit here, I read those questions you give beforehand, I think, how can I summarize a 20-minute, story into a 3-minute answer, right?
I know.
Our Blessed Mother had a big influence on it.
Okay.
So learning to pray in the rosary every day before going to bed as an 8th grader.
Mhm.
About a number of things. I had a moment where I thought I had heard Our Lady's voice. Whether or not I did, that's what will be revealed in the end. But it was about my sophomore year when I started, from the impetus of Our Lady, entering into the faith, entering into what the church teaches. So I think it was about the end of my sophomore year that I thought, I think I want to do this. I want to go to seminary.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was that scary to realize that? Or was it?
To a degree.
Okay.
I think at the time I was still, especially my junior year, I was pretty infatuated with I mean, it's like when you fall in love the first time, right? You can't stop thinking about it.
Sure.
And you don't see anything wrong. You see it's only sunshine and rainbows.
It's all good things.
Yeah. So I loved the faith that I was studying, that I was being revealed to me, and through prayer, through the teachings, through the liturgy, and I wanted to share this with people.
Right.
And that was what I wanted to do with my life.
Right. If you're just joining us, I'm talking to currently Deacon Zach Schaefbauer, soon to be Father Zach Schaefbauer. So how did your family react when you told them, hey, I think I'm going to go to seminary, or I am going to go to seminary?
My mom was pretty excited.
I can see that.
Dad he wasn't against it. That was the thing. But he was, I think, as I look back on it, a very fatherly thing to do was he said, okay, well, if this is what you want, be patient, take your time. We'll see what happens. So he's always been of the mindset to never force anything upon us.
Right.
So long as if it's a good thing, well, we can pursue it if we desire.
And I think that's a good way for parents to respond, because in your time in seminary, there's a lot of discernment going on.
Right. And you don't want to be, there's those guys in seminary who are they there on their own accord, on their own will, or is this like their mom's vocation or their dad's vocation?
Right.
Right.
And if you're going to be a good priest, you have to make that decision for yourself.
It's got to be yours. Yep. It's got to be your call.
Yeah. Good. Did you have any fears going to seminary? Or how did, let's ask it. Let's go here first. What was the best part of seminary?
Oh, best part, definitely the fraternity.
Okay.
And then I'm particular in this, I think, the studies. I loved the studies. So
that's good, because there's a lot of them.
Yes.
This is not an easy path, is it?
Right.
No. Were there some struggles there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, especially as you get closer to the end, it's like all things in life, when you make transitions or when things become real, you start to see reality.
Right.
Priests aren't perfect. The church, at least in its members, isn't perfect. The parish life is not, sunshine and rainbows, like I said earlier. There's a whole lot of mess. Sin's a real thing. And you, I think rightly so, start to question, is this something I really want to do?
Right.
Not to mention the aspects of celibacy. So literally thinking about, I will not have a wife. I will not have kids. So loneliness being a real thing that you have to encounter.
Was that something that was a struggle for you, or was that, because I know it's different for every man, I think, as they go through that. How was that for you?
Yeah, I guess my biggest fear was always loneliness.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, from the time I entered. And the Lord provides. I mean, I've not to like brush it aside, but that was probably the hardest thing to get through. And with seminary, it's sometimes easy to forget about it because you have your brothers, seminarians. And I know as priests we have fraternity, but it's just not the same as having that permanent companionship.
Yep. And it depends on if you're in a rural parish or where you are.
Right.
Sometimes that can be very lonely. And I think we as lay people should remember that for our priests, because, as you said, Father Haggerty, your parents had priests over for supper a lot. That's actually really important that we do that to help priests avoid that loneliness.
Yeah, it's a communal effort.
Yeah.
I mean, just like as the priest gets involved with the lives of the faithful, and from the beginning of life to the end of life and everything in between, the priest, we don't say this, but it's, I think it could be stressed more, is it takes also the Catholic community to support the priests. It's hard for us to support when we're standing on, sand, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, and there are a lot of good faithful in our diocese. That's one thing I've been very grateful for in the Sioux Falls Diocese. The people are very generous, very open with their time.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you've experienced that so far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to be ordained in 2 days. Have you had time to process this?
I've tried.
You tried. Usually, so we have 3, of course, being ordained this year. And as with last year, I end up interviewing one of you before ordination and then the other 2 after. So we don't get to hear your best memories. So we'll have to have you back sometime. But is there any part that you think will stand out to you? Because obviously you've been to ordinations. Is there a part you're most looking forward to? Anything like that?
Besides the whole thing.
getting it done.
Getting
the
it
cake
over
at
with,
the end.
right? Saying mass for the first time. I mean, that's obviously
yeah.
that's not ordination itself, but
But that's something to look forward to.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. So where will you say mass for the first time?
Aberdeen, Sacred
Okay.
Heart.
Sacred Heart.
So-
Is that your home parish?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
Have you I know during your transitional deacon time you were down at Holy Spirit here in Sioux Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Were you up at Sacred Heart at all during that summer?
I was there at the opening weekend, so I was
Okay.
able to preach
Okay.
for my first time at
Okay.
Sacred Heart,
So this will be your second time then at Sacred Heart.
doing opening stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, it'll be great to be able to do that. Is there something you're most nervous about as a priest? I always feel like this should be confessions, but it never is. It's always the confessions, the thing I'm looking forward to the most. That sounds crazy to a regular person because we're all afraid to go. See, so what's the most intimidating maybe part?
I mean, in my mind, immediately, the day-to-day,
Mm-hmm.
how to make a schedule as a priest.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that really just depends on the parish. And I got a glimpse of Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we do a lot of work in the mornings and then in the evenings, usually in the afternoons. So what do you do in the afternoons?
Right. They'll keep you busy.
I think so.
We'll keep you busy.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, just kind of being a new priest, just want to settle in and
Yeah.
intimidated by a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand that. Yeah, you have some big shoes to fill with Father Klein as the associate. Not to make you nervous or anything.
Don't give him credit. Do not give him that much credit.
Father Tony has been great. I actually feel like you're going to be very similar to him in a lot of ways. There's a story here I think we might have to hear sometime. All right. What's been the biggest blessing so far of your journey?
I would say there was a big moment. There's 2 really big moments of my second year of theology, so a couple years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
A few things that happened on my 30-day silent retreat that originally I wasn't planning on doing changed my life. And then there was a professor who really altered, in the best way possible, my view of the faith, of the life of faith, of what it means to live as a Catholic man and a Catholic priest.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say, the academia, and then just the surprises that the Lord gives on in those areas that you either don't want to do or that you at least expected to happen. Wish I could talk more about that, but
That's
I think
totally
out of confidence.
fine.
But I'd say theology too was just a big year of
Yeah.
Shifting my mind, seeing the fruit of intellectual formation
Right.
play out practically.
Mm-hmm. That's really good to hear because I think a lot of us feel like, well, priests must know everything and they're at the pinnacle of their faith. But even when you're in seminary, when you're a priest, you're always learning things. There's so much to the Catholic faith. You're always learning. And we have to remember that as lay people, that we don't have to be expected to know everything either. Even priests they're not Jesus. They don't have all of it right now. So it's always good to hear that, I think.
Yeah.
So we know we have lots of work to do too.
Yeah, priests have to be good about saying, "I'll get back to you."
Right. Yes. Don't make stuff up.
And I'm totally at fault with that. It's very easy to want to say, "Okay, well, I know this and this enough,
Right.
so maybe I can conceive an answer here quick." But no.
I'm glad you don't. Okay, so the last thing I really want to have you tell us. So if a young man came to you and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about becoming a priest, or I'm thinking about going to seminary," what advice would you give him?
I'd probably first ask him why.
Why? Maybe not like that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to ask.
Yeah. because I'd really like to hear what it is that they desire in the priesthood. And then I would say, depending, I guess, really circumstances, right? Is this a college kid? Is this a kid in senior in high school?
Right.
Is he early in high school? I would say, well, if this is something you really want to do, approach the church, present yourself, and say, I think I want to do this. And if the bishop accepts you and you go to seminary, see that as a sign from God that he wants you there.
Right.
And then it's kind of the same thing. Like professor once said, we asked him, how do you know when you're called to be a priest? And he says, well, after ordination, you became a priest. So
that's how you know you were called.
Yeah, it's taking the steps. It's, if this is something you want to do, put your whole heart and your mind to it, and take a step in the dark, that act of faith, and all will be well. I would just say, study well.
Yeah.
Study everything that you can.
Yeah.
Would be my biggest advice to him.
Yeah. Great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, so couple days.
2 days.
You're gonna be there. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm looking very much forward to you coming to Holy Spirit and being there for a couple of years. We'll be throwing stuff at you from the front row when you
That'll be
do
good.
homilies.
That'll be good.
Thanks a lot for coming in. Deacon
Thanks, Renee.
Schaefbauer. You bet. All right. If you didn't get to go to ordination, you can find the ordination video at our YouTube page at SF Diocese. You can also usually access it from our website as well, sfcatholic.org. That is it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.